Alright, so you saw the thumbnail and the title of the video, so you know what this one's going to be about. I'm having Sukuna, the King of Curses, versus the Demon King Ganondorf from Tears of the Kingdom. I'll be using only canon material for both characters, so I'm not going to use any potential cross-scaling for either verse, besides one thing for Ganondorf, and that's only because it's sort of canon. But I'll only be using that as a high-end. Not something that will really determine the outcome of this fight, because, frankly, the outcome's pretty clear without me using any of that. For Sukuna, well, he's pretty consistently stated the strongest in his verse, ignoring the new sequel manga that is coming out right now. I don't know too much about that, but from what I've heard, it hasn't really shook up the scaling of Jujutsu Kaisen that much yet. It might eventually, but we'll see. Regardless, Sukuna right now is pretty much one of only two characters that ever gets put at the top of the verse, the other being Gojo. I would say Gojo's stronger than Sukuna during their main part of their fight, but if he's stronger than Sukuna at his peak later on is very debatable. For this, I'll go ahead and argue he is, just for the sake of the argument, but it's extremely dubious to do that because there's so much stuff for both sides. And their power kind of fluctuates throughout the fights anyway. In terms of power, he should be well above characters like Jogo and Dagon, who have anywhere from mountain level to island level arguments. Though Dagon should be pretty comfortably an island level because he makes an island. A lot of calcs only have it at mountain level due to being relatively small, so yeah, you can argue island level still, but it's strange because how little the island actually is. I mean, I guess there's also water around it and all that, and he would have had to make that too, but it's a weird situation. You can also pretty easily get him past city level, even without that, as he has a feat that is literally just city level, well, not even at full power. So there's that as well. And then Jogo has a super powerful meteor attack that can also get pretty high, so he should be very comfortably in those city to island level ranges fairly consistently, well, not even at full power. His abilities are also pretty broken. He has Maharaga just kind of with him, which can adapt to any curse technique and almost adapt to anything for the most part, with it also having its own unique abilities as well as some pretty absurd physical strength. He is obviously stronger in Maharaga, but he still has that, as well as another entity that's roughly equal to Maharaga without the evolutionary abilities. He himself also has multiple forms of fire manipulation, the main one being that big-ass nuke arrow. He can also utilize multiple forms of his dismantle, slash, whatever the hell its curse technique name is now. One of which negates durability by cutting space itself, which is how he was able to bypass Gojo's perfect defense, which is pretty broken because it literally negates like 99% of fiction's durability. So his hacks are pretty absurd. He also has curse tools that give him some other elemental manipulations and stuff like that. Overall, he has a pretty big arsenal. Of course, he also has his domain expansion, which, unlike most, doesn't actually make a little pocket realm. It kind of just puts itself overlapping whatever it's on in reality. It's essentially his little slash attacks, but on steroids, and they're all over the place, and they can negate most durability. So, yeah, it's pretty strong. It's actually probably the strongest domain expansion in terms of raw power in the entire verse, for the most part. The only one I'd consistently rank above it is one that on Iron actually just gets countered by it if they try to put them against each other, but generally speaking, I'd say that Gojo's domain expansion is probably better for most scenarios, because unless you're Sukuna, you can't counter it for the most part. Or if you're someone else in the video that's coming up, but we won't talk about that. In terms of speed, Sukuna is pretty fast. He can dodge FTL attacks, well, not at his best, and at point-blank range. Most calcs for this have it around 3 to maybe 4 times the speed of light for the most part. Basically, it's like nanosecond reactions. There's another character that I'll talk about in the video coming up that also has nanosecond reactions, though his are technically more impressive. Regardless, he has something near nanosecond reactions, which is always going to be FTL. And as if all that was enough, Sukuna can also heal himself, obviously, so he's almost impossible to kill under most scenarios. There is one higher end you can argue for Sukuna that I personally would never use, and that is that you can pseudo-argue him to a certain black hole feat in the series. The reason I wouldn't do that is because his black hole feat isn't something that even the character that makes the black hole really scales to. If you've read the manga, You know why. I won't spoil anything for anyone that is still on only the show, as that hasn't happened yet, but yeah, they shouldn't scale to that feat, neither should Sukuna, really. If you did, though, most calcs only have it at planetary. And the black hole itself is somewhere around moon to maybe low planetary, with its full power being somewhere around planetary as it was going to destroy the planet. So, it's strong, but it's not that strong. The highest possible argument is dwarf star. So, at the absolute best, if you use something that I normally wouldn't ever use for Sukuna, you can argue he's dwarf star level with low FTL level speeds to just baseline FTL, which is decently good. Now for the Demon King Ganondorf. If you want a more in-depth rundown of the character, another power scaler by the name of Crisis has a much longer video talking about the Link from Tears of the Kingdom. I'd recommend checking that video out. I've watched it, it was pretty good. And I say a lot of the same stuff he says there, so, I mean, you'll get some of the same stuff, but he does go pretty in-depth, giving most of the sources for some of the things I'll say, whereas in this video I'm more just running stuff down because I'm working on a much larger video right now. Regardless, definitely check that out, and his channel in general. He's a pretty good power scaler. Some of the most basic stuff for Ganondorf is that, well, Ganondorf upscales every version of himself seen prior in the game, besides his dragon form, while in Demon King state. So he's stronger than Base Ganondorf. Base Ganondorf is stronger than Mummy Ganondorf. Mummy Ganondorf is stronger than his Massive Beast state. His Massive Beast state is stronger than the normal Calamity Ganon, and most likely also the perfect Calamity Ganon state, even though there's some arguments that you can put the perfect Calamity Ganon form above the Beast state. Regardless, Demon King's above both anyway. And the normal Calamity Ganon is stronger than his sealed state, which is the state that we're going to be scaling for the most part. Right at the bat, this state can create, resurrect, and is blatantly far more powerful than Electric Wizzarobes? Electric Wizzarobes. These goofy little things right here. Yeah, he's stronger than them. Now, why is that impressive, you may say? Well, they can just do this funny little thing called make a thunderstorm that covers all of Hyrule. That's country level. Even if you downplay it, it's still like well past high island level. So, yeah. Big boy feats already. And this is backed because characters far weaker than this sealed Calamity Ganon could still blow holes in mountains or carve them in half. These are characters that Link upscales as well. And he's also on a similar tier to Link for the most part until Link gets the Master Sword. Link, even before he gets the Master Sword, is stronger than all the champions. He can 1v4 them. The champions kind of generally scale to the Blights, and the Blights and champions both generally scale to the clones of the champions that Link 1v4'd. The Blights can kill the champions. And the Divine Beast, one of the things that blew a hole in that mountain and could actually damage Calamity Ganon, but not enough to defeat his Dark Beast form, are all things that Link would just upscale. And Ganon obviously scales well above this Link because in Mummy state he one-shotted his ass. So, yeah, right off the bat, he already has pretty casual country-level arguments. And he can also do feats himself, even while sealed, through just the leaked power he's emitting, not even close to his full power. He can drag the moon across the night sky in around 5 seconds. In-game, that's like 5 minutes if you take the game's clock hyper literally. If you don't do that, since nothing else really abides by that besides this, you can argue it's actually 5 seconds. Even with 5 minutes, that's large planetary. Yeah. If you take it as 5 seconds, I don't think I need to explain to you why that would be a lot more. So, while hyper nerfed and sealed and being blasted with energy that he's actually weak to, his leaking hatred, basically, can just do large planetary feats like that. Yeah, that's the type of power we're looking at here, people. And yes, Ganon is durable enough to take comparable amounts of power right back at him. He was obviously able to overpower Zelda, well, super nerfed. She has the power of the Triforce, which, though it's contentious to say how much she should scale to it, as the scaling's pretty weird depending on which timeline you're going off of. If we do assume that Hylia is comparable to her Skyward Sword self, which she technically should be. I don't see why she wouldn't be. This is made by the same people. Then you could kind of scale it to not only the other goddesses, but Demise, meaning you could unironically argue Universal plus levels of power for Zelda, and Ganon's already above that. Now, he doesn't scale to the full Triforce, only a fraction of it by being used by a user that's not the strongest user of it by a country mile, but even base form Demise, who Ocarina of Time Ganondorf is like significantly stronger than, can make hyperspaces, and Hylia is at least on his level. So there's that. And the other goddesses and Hylia also made a universe. And there's other entities like Majora that can make stars and potentially affect entire time spaces as well. And other versions of Link have also directly affected time spaces through sheer willpower. So universal arguments aren't too out there for any form of Legend of Zelda. And it's extremely unlikely that this new Ganondorf isn't also a reincarnation of Demise that should at least be comparable to him. Though, in my opinion, off what we see, he should actually be a lot stronger. I wouldn't go as far to say he's stronger than Ocarina of Time Ganondorf or Twilight Princess, though I do think he is in a similar conversation to them in terms of power, depending on how you look at it. Though Breath of the Wild's placement in the timeline and Time Web and Time Branch and all that stuff is extremely weird right now. We do know Hylia is canon, the Maya should be canon. They've referenced stuff like that, so it's most likely that they kind of scale to the other games still. Though I understand if you don't want to use Skyward Swords or anything like that at all. Regardless, Ganondorf, while in his Tears of the Kingdom appearance and mummified, can one-shot a version of Link that should have, at this point, far surpassed any version of Calamity Ganon from the prior game. As I already explained, this Ganon's pretty casually large planetary, while at his weakest state in that game. So, yeah, Ganondorf is a lot stronger even as a mummy. Base Ganondorf is obviously stronger than that, and Demon King Ganondorf and his dragon state far surpass base Ganondorf. He's also the only other character in the game that can do a Flurry Rush. The Flurry Rush should be actually faster in this game than it was in the last game, which is why his speed is going to be crazy when I go over that. But Ganondorf himself has a lot of abilities. He can cover the entire world in Gloom. Gloom is just like Malice from the last game, but stronger. It can affect your very soul, drain your life force, and just obliterate your abilities indefinitely. It can make people sick. He can use it to basically just one-shot anything. It can overpower the Master Sword. It's pretty broken. He also has multiple forms of magic, mostly from Gloom, and he has multiple weapons that are also amped by Gloom. He should share all of the abilities that his constructs and monsters have, meaning he can do anything that the Blights were capable of doing, so he has a lot of elemental magic he can most likely draw from. He can summon Phantom Ganons, which are stronger than Calamity Ganon, unironically. He could summon any of the bosses from the game or the prior game, most likely. He can summon any monster. He can summon hordes of monsters that can attack the entire planet at once, basically. He's a walking, talking end of the world. Made pretty consistent by the fact that literally every sage throughout the entire series, including this, is stated to have a fraction of Hylia's power, and Ganon can just smack these guys around like they're nothing and pretty casually kill them. Something made very, very clear in Tears of the Kingdom. And that's not even his strongest form, as he can simply eat his Tear of Time and become a massive-ass dragon that's implied to be significantly stronger than the Demon King state. Meaning he has an even stronger form than that. So yeah, Ganondorf's kind of broken, and he's fast too, as Link has pretty casual showings in Breath of the Wild, where he can travel at 38 times the speed of light in the Flurry Rush on a lower end. Not even the peak of it. And he should be a lot faster by the time of Tears of the Kingdom, and Ganondorf can match his speed directly while in Demon King state with his own Flurry Rush. So yeah, he's pretty fast, like extremely fast. You can also argue he's even faster off cross-scaling with older games, which can get him even above this. This isn't necessarily inconsistent, as when Flurry Rushing, even lasers look slowed down, and Link also has shown to be able to run fast enough to catch up to a laser after it's fired and then block it with his shield, and move his arm fast enough to deflect it, all within the span of well, a laser traveling after it had already been fired, which you can unironically argue to be FTL. So yeah, it's fairly consistent speeds, even for a Link pre-Master Sword. Obviously, Ganon should be well above that. Ganondorf himself also literally has light-like attacks as well. He can summon enemies that use lightning and light as weapons. So yeah, Ganondorf's kind of insane when it comes to both attack speed and his reaction speeds, as well as his travel speed as well, as he can travel at stupid speeds. As well as having the ability to teleport and do a bunch of other really bad things. So, who do I think wins? Well, even if you give Sukuna his planetary to dwarf star level arguments off some Wink scaling, Ganondorf not only has better arguments, but is far more consistently in that tier, even off not Wank arguments. And his Wank is a lot more believable than Sukuna's. In fact, it's arguably not even Wank at all, as this is stuff that he arguably just should scale to as being part of the Zelda series, where almost everything scales to it. Bottom line is, you have to kind of go really out there to argue Sukuna's planetary, where you can get Ganondorf to large planetary off just in-game stuff, and you can get him to universal off just lore implications. And with Wank arguing that a lot of these amps are bigger than you would assume they are, you can get him even higher than that, to these multiversal tiers. You can't get Sukuna at that level no matter how much you wank him. The only argument I could see anyone bringing up to even argue universal for Jujutsu Kaisen is if you pull an argument I've seen a couple of people pull, where they believe that Gojo's ability literally makes infinite space. That's not how it works, and even if it was, that's only universal on a 3D level, which Ganondorf would be above, simply off the hyperspace argument. So, yeah. Ganondorf obliterates, and it's not close. Despite these two filling a very similar niche in their verse and being very similar characters, the Demon King obliterates the King of Curses, and it shouldn't even be a debate.